Finally got my hands on Moon Knight number 55, the Stephen Platt cover. One down, but I need the others. I wish there was a way I could just, snap my fingers and boom, they'd all be here.
Let's see, Moon Knight, Stephen Platt. Okay, here it is, 56. Perfect. I just love holding these Stephen Platt Moon Knight comic books in my hand. What? Dave!
I'll get you for this, Avengers. If it's the last thing I do.
West Coast Avengers! Snap my fingers and steal your books!
So I'm only wearing the hat so people recognize me from Instagram. Otherwise, they'd be like, "Who's that guy without the funny hat?"
Without
But I'm not going to wear it for the whole interview. I just want to let you know that.
a bunch of guys with no hair and all beards.
I know they're going to be like, "What's that other version of Dave doing down there?"
The third version of Dave.
Third Dave. Exactly.
Let's hold on. Let's do this. West Coast Avengers. Right.
MM Comics Edition.
I have taken to calling you comics. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the West Coast Avengers and comics. This is Matty Marlin of Comics. If you don't know him, one of the kings of the live sales on Instagram. So I know Matty through friends who told me I should watch his show and basically become friends with him. And so here we are. Matty, why don't you give a little bit of background, how you got started live, and then we'll go back.
Okay, sure. Okay, so how I got started live selling on Instagram?
Yeah.
I guess my origin story, if you will. I have a cousin named Aaron out in Portland, not Portland, but out in Oregon, Eugene, I think.
I know Eugene.
And he is an OG comic collector. Like, he's been lifelong. Like, he and I were into it as kids, but he just like continued really hard throughout his entire life, and now he's like, one of the preeminent comic collectors in the game, I would say. Like, he's the kind of collection people write articles about and go and interview him about and stuff. And he's got an Instagram page, AM Comic Sales.
Right.
So when I first started dipping my toe back into the comic waters back in, I don't know, the year before pandemic, maybe early 2019 or so, I was hitting him up with just a lot of newbie questions, just like, how do I do this? How do I do that? What's a good app to use? How do I get prices on things? Just really basic stuff. And he was sort of begrudgingly like being like, okay, this is how you do this, you dummy. I've been doing this for 30 years. But basically, I just started my own Instagram page, Comic Sales, just kind of as a spin-off of his. Like, I guess I could do this. And he's like, yeah, it's free to start. Go for it. And I think just, I was starting to do like claim posts that were just sort of like $5 books here, $10 books here. And like, no one was buying them. And I was kind of like demoralized. I was like, why doesn't anyone want this, number one image issue I got last week for $10? I don't get it. Why won't people buy this? And then one day I saw a live sale pop up, and it was just like, I had no idea that was happening. It was just kind of a total surprise. And the first time I saw it, it was like thrilling, because it was like, is this real life? People are bidding just by commenting. It was just like totally novel to me and a little intimidating. And it sort of, eventually started watching more and worked up the nerve to try it myself. And it was a little awkward at first. I remember I only had like 8 or 9 viewers, but I was selling more stuff than I was just trying to do claim posts like one at a time. So just kind of rolled from there. And, eventually I had like a consignor buddy near me who was trying to sort of sell a lot of his collection, and we kind of partnered up. So I had more inventory with him in the early days, and that helped out a lot as well.
When I entered into the fray, Mike Grayman, he was the one who told me to come and check your sell out, because as a seller, I've got more experience than almost half my life. 99, I started doing eBay. I was doing card and comic shows when I was a kid. So like I always dip my toe in, but not until we were afforded, or people in this country were afforded to sit at, or were told to sit at home, but be able to afford to buy stuff while they were sitting at home, that I was like, man, why am I not doing this? Why am I wasting my time giving money to eBay and Etsy and Mercari when I could just do this without having to give money to them?
Yes.
And watching your show and kind of befriending you was one of those things where I was like, I was stoked to like be able to talk to somebody that knew that part of it. Like I never dipped my toe into the live selling, and I'm still learning every day, but I've learned also more about comics in the last 2 years than I have in, even when I worked for the CBLDF for 4 months, the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund.
Oh, wow.
And I learned more about comics in the last like 6 months than I did in the 4 months I worked in the comic industry in that level. Way. Yeah.
It's crazy how kind of like immersion kind of like in the community and stuff really like catches you up pretty quick to just yeah.
And then the visual memory part of it too. It's like seeing a book, hearing somebody talk about it, and then it's like I could see that book somewhere and be like, I know what that is. And I don't know what that is, but I do.
Absolutely. That was like a big aha moment for me, was like starting to, at first I'm trying to like memorize the key issues and stuff. I'm trying to memorize like, I remember early on, I was writing down the key information on the backing board of every book.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to remember this, so I need to write it down. Now I'm like, of course I don't need to write it down. I know all the stuff, and if I don't know it, I'll just look it up,
I still do.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's helpful sometimes. If it's pure or like a character I don't know, I still do it. But
you don't need to write down an Amazing Spider-Man 300 what it is.
No, you don't. You get it. But like part of the aha moment was like, I don't necessarily need to know the issue number as much as the visual memory of the cover. If I'm digging through boxes, I don't need to be looking at every single issue number and checking my app. You know what I mean? I can just be, I know this cover, pull it, and then, you know what I mean? It's a little bit, you can dig faster that way if you just sort of have that visual Rolodex.
You're a music guy, so I assume you have a record collection.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's like the same, only to a micro degree. Whereas like you don't have to like flip through records and be like, oh, I like it says it on the front, you know. Or most albums are like, every Led Zeppelin cover, every Beatles cover, what Nevermind looks like.
Totally. Totally. And like also, I think as something that's been changing as you and I have been getting back into it also is like more emphasis even than there was in the past on cover art in general. Like keys become more important with covers, Gambit 266 is more important than X-Men Annual 14 because it's got the dope cover, you know what I mean? And like same thing with 181, same thing with 300, the list goes on. So the bias always goes towards the cover, and to that effect, any book doesn't need to be a key necessarily as long as it's got a sick cover. And then if it's a newsstand, even better. So like you can just pull things that just look great that you think maybe they're undervalued now, but the cover art alone is going to command value in the future.
Completely. And that's one of the things in the paradigm shift of the comic book selling industry, or whatever you want to call it, or collecting and selling, it goes hand in hand, has really put a kind of smile on my face, because I was an art guy. I was an art kid, not an art student, but I loved comic art. And then I became a story first person when I started reading Sandman and the Miller, Gaiman, Ennis, Ellis, Bendis, like those guys. But now I'm stoked to see stuff like Hulk 340 be a really expensive book. It's not a key issue, but goddamn, that's a hell of a cover. Or some of the Silver Surfer stuff, like the Ron Lim stuff. I didn't think he ever really got respect that he deserved. And I think more and more now he does.
Totally. Well, there's a lot of 90s nostalgia in general, a lot of that aesthetic and stuff. And Surfer Volume 3 is like one of the runs I collect. I'm trying to put together the whole run because it's like pretty cheap, and it's a fun, I like cheap, fun runs to actually have that as the note in my in my iPhone notes is fun runs, and then I have like the issues that I need to fill.
Anybody that watches this channel knows the phrase, when you see Todd,
bye Todd.
Yes. And so I'm finally stoked to see him get the overall respect as an artist that he once had. Like, it's coming back where the Marvel Tales stuff that he did, the reprint Spider-Man stuff, like, people are really buying up those books because everybody's like, oh man, these covers are sick.
Covers are sick, and also like more affordable reprints of like classic key issues and stuff like that.
Yeah. And so it's always been a point for me as a seller to kind of push like art that I love. So, you know, like Trad Moore, I'm stoked to see him. Like, I mean, obviously Silver Surfer Black did put him in a stratosphere, but Talon of Luther Strode, I think, is a book that is hugely undervalued because it's his first
work. That's a
work.
Kate's book also?
No, it's Robbie. It's not Robbie Roberts. His name's on the tip of my tongue. It's like Rob. It's not Kate
Liefeld.
No, it's not. But it's Tradmore's. I guess he's half creator of that series because he was the artist, and it's something that a lot of people.
I'm a big fan. Yeah.
See, it's a thing that's like super undervalued because it came out like 2010, around that era, maybe a little bit before, when nobody was really collecting anything. And like, that's the thing.
No one's really collecting anything.
Really?
Well, it's true. It's like a dark hole of low print runs.
It really is. Yeah. I don't know where you're collecting, like your wave was, but it was like I got out like around, I collected as a kid from like 89 through 96.
Yeah, that's about my window too.
I drop off, and then my friend gives me he gives me Hellblazer, he gives me Why the Last Man, he gives me Sandman, and I start reading all this stuff, and I'm like, oh shit, I got to start collecting again.
Yeah.
So I go straight first into Image, and that's when I find Saga, and I find Luther Strode and Invincible, and then I dropped off again in like 2015, and I really never picked back up full strength.
Mm-hmm.
On the new stuff. I just kept going back, and getting old stuff.
Right.
But like, I joined in up on The Walking Dead too late, and Invincible, and had I known what it was going to be like, sure, I would have bought those issues back in the early 2000s.
Of course. There's a ton of coulda, woulda, shouldas. I mean, I still scratch my head thinking like, what was I thinking going, when Into the Spider-Verse came out, I was like, that movie like blew my mind.
Yeah.
Like I was like, this is the best comic book movie I've ever seen, and I love these characters. And then I get into comics, it not directly resulting from that, but like, why am I not buying up those books like Ultimate Fallout 4 and Into the Spider-Verse 2 like any chance I get at those prices? It's just weird to me that the whole comic hobby did not spike those books until like years later.
Right. It is kind of weird. And I told you recently that I was rereading Ultimate Spider-Man, and I had never bought Ultimate Spider-Man in single issue format. I was just buying like the trades as they were coming out.
Yeah.
But I literally stopped reading that book maybe about 6 months before Fallout hit, maybe even less. Like, I remember when Spider-Man dies, and I remember reading the first trade of Miles, and I'm just like, there's a gap in my memory where I'm just like, why don't I own that book? From the get-go. Granted, I would have sold it by now. I moved around a lot, and I sold a lot of stuff.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, same thing here. It's like, if there is that thing of like, sometimes as buyer sellers, you just like sell when you can take profit sort of thing. So like, a lot of those things we wish we had bought before probably wouldn't have hung around that long. So sometimes when I hear people say like, man, I really wish I could have had that now, it's sort of like you're saying, I wish I could have had it to be able to sell it now, which is a weird thing. There's a weird paradox with like buyer seller mentality. I struggle with myself. I just sold my copy of Edge of Spider-Verse 298.
I see it
this morning.
Yeah, I see it. I saw the post, and
it's a hole on my wall.
Yeah, right, it would have been next to the Fallout.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I've actually gotten good, and that's a thing that, like, as collectors, as sellers, or as both, or as separately, I've actually finally come to a good place where I'm like, well, my personal collection does never gets poached unless it's something that I bought that I don't care about. But like my McFarlane stuff, untouchable. Yeah, like the Sandmans, unless I get an upgraded copy, Sandman number 8 and 1, untouchable.
So those are, you feel like non-negotiable to you?
Yeah. They are, just because
I wish I've unfortunately had to like slaughter my sacred cows over and over again. Like my favorite book of all time is Fantastic Four 49, Second
I
Surfer.
know you sold that.
And I sold it. Like first I was just getting tight with money, and it was like, it was a 7.5, which is like such a beefy grade for that book. And it's like, so my first compromise to myself was like, all right, I'm going to downgrade it, to a 7 and just free up some of that cash, like, and so I did that and I freed up some cash, and then I still was short 1 month, and I was like, all right, I gotta bite the bullet. And now I have a raw copy, which is great, but it's sort of like, I don't know, I just keep having to betray my personal collection. And it's like, with Edge of Spider-Verse 2, it's like, I'm a fan of Spider-Gwen, but I'm also like, it's like I have to have a split personality about this, like compartmentalization a little bit, where it's like I can feed my fanboy, and then I can be like, okay, you're cut off, fanboy. Like, you're a grown-ass man. You don't have to have an attachment to this thing. You need the money, or you need to pay bills, whatever. And I just have to keep doing that alternately. And I find that I'm gaining comfort with that, where I sort of can indulge my collector and try to feed that sort of inner child, but I can also like try to turn around and make a decision that's hard, but also like, maybe I won't miss it so much. It's like I need to pay the bill.
And there's two things to always remember: you're running a business, and those books are out there. It will come back to you. I mean, I just pulled the trigger on getting a 49 and a 52 raw at a price that I couldn't pass up, and those I'm going to keep. Like, I've already spent that money. If I find another one, then I get to make the choice: which one do I keep, which one do I sell?
Totally. My goal is to be in a better place with my business and my life financially in general, to be able to keep more really nice pieces. But I still have, at this phase of my growth or whatever, like, I need to, those things are always chips hanging in the balance I can put on the chopping block if I need to, and hopefully I won't have to make those hard decisions as much in the future,
and also maybe not displaying the books in the room that you sell, the ones that you're not selling. I don't know, like, so behind me, this is new for me, my wall, and it's it's very young, but when I'm doing a live sale, these come down completely. They're off the wall, and then they're in a box.
Right.
So I never have to see them.
That's a good thought. That's
just a little tactic. So yes, I definitely will look at your sales, and I say, this is the type of, we both have personalities that people seem to enjoy. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But I've had, I enjoy watching your show because it's not like this boring thing. I don't want to watch somebody do live the same experience that I get when I walk into an adult comic store.
Sure.
I want to watch somebody's live show who knows what they're talking about, is friendly, and also like has fun shit to, like, fun books to sell. And you don't feel like you're getting ripped off. And so that's why I wanted to sit down and talk with you today, because I think, just like every part of collecting, there's this huge discrepancy. There's this huge line, and there's this line where people are trying to do this thing and they don't know what they're doing, whether it's malicious or not. They're selling books that they shouldn't be selling at the prices that they're selling.
Right.
And I look at it this way, and I don't know if you feel the same, but I'll let you talk about it. Words. I want to be able to provide books at costs that go under the market, or, like, why are you buying from me instead of eBay? Why are you buying from me instead of, maybe you have a local comic store to go to? So I want to provide that. Plus, I want you to have fun. And so like when you got into this, were there things that you were like, oh, this is my goal, this is what I want to do? Like, obviously you're doing this to make money, but
yeah,
we could all take jobs that make money that don't give us any joy.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think early on, one of my things was I would notice other sellers, we were both music people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would notice other sellers playing music that I really didn't like music that, and I've sort of fallen into this little pigeonhole of like, I play dub music, basically. I play
Right.
like, reggae and dub, and I'm not like the biggest, it's not what I listen to in my daily life, like 24 hours a day. It's just what has become kind of my auctions become known for.
Mm-hmm.
And I do love the music, but anyway, that I would just sort of notice like people playing kind of generic Spotify playlists or generic comic book movie playlist. I'm like, all right, I like comic book movies, but I don't
Not that
listening
much
to the soundtracks all, like, for 4 hours,
yeah
while I'm buying comics. Nothing against people who choose to do that, but anyway, I was sort of like, I have a record collection, I am a musician, I'm gonna play vinyl while I'm doing my live sale, and that'll be just something extra, that I do that other people aren't doing.
I
And
wish I would have
unfortunately,
seen that.
yeah, it was fun.
Never got to see that.
I wish I still had that set up. My office is different now, and this is my old place. And so my buddy Mike, who I used to sort of partner up with to sell with, he used to describe it as it felt sort of like a sophisticated adult hangout or something.
Yeah.
Because you'd see this like turntable spinning a real record, and I'd go up and switch it, flip the record when it was over, and it was part of the vibe.
Yeah.
And so that was early on kind of something that I think helped to set me apart from some of the other sales. Just it showed a little bit more of my personality, and sort of and gave, and I made a show of it, like I was a big snob, like there's no Spotify on this channel, all vinyl, I'm gonna curate this for you guys. And then of course I totally sold out for convenience sake. I'm just like, okay, it's just a Spotify playlist now, but
yeah,
it's inspired by what I used to play on vinyl when I was doing that.
It's incredibly hard to focus on doing anything other than selling comics while you're selling comics, and like,
it's really hard.
Yeah, and
I can hardly drink water. I have an auction hangover.
Yeah,
every week because I don't drink enough water. It's like hard for me to take a break.
Yeah,
what's happening?
I see. I can't do the music thing on Instagram, because what I want to play, I'll just get kicked off for it. Right. But on Whatnot, I've curated, like, everybody knows that comes into my Whatnot that's a regular knows we're going to talk about the 90s music, and I'm going to be listening to a lot of heavy music, interspersed with some stuff that's not heavy. But like, I have people that will come in and we'll just talk about Nine Inch Nails and Pearl Jam and like all this stuff all night while I'm selling books. I couldn't ask for a better job than doing something like that. Like, I get to play really loud music that does not get censored while I sell books. And, but then again, after a Whatnot show, I do like 4 hours. My voice is shot, just shot. I mean, I made the mistake 2 weeks ago doing 2 Instagrams and a Whatnot in 3 days. And I felt like dog shit.
Dude, that is rough. Whenever I do a double header, like week, two nights in a row, it takes a lot out of you.
Yeah. But yeah, I appreciate the music is definitely something I always like. I always want to ask you what we're listening to, but I don't want to interrupt the show. Like, I'll be like, who is this? Who is this? Because I'm sure it's like, there's got to be some Peter Tosh in there that's been.
Yeah. Peter Tosh. I mean, the go-to is King Tubby. He's the main artist. And Lee Scratch Perry as well. Mm-hmm. Those are the two main names that sort of come up a lot in my dub playlist.
Okay.
I think my little brother is also a vinyl dealer. He's like a collector and dealer of vinyl, and he lives in Providence as well. Shout out to Nick at Mega City Records. Check him out if you're a vinyl head out there. But he turned me on to King Tubby. I think also he like gifted me with like this triple LP, which was the main source of music in my early.
Cool. So live shows, and then I think I enjoy watching your live shows, like even when I'm not intending to buy anything, and then sometimes I do. But
I rope you in.
yeah. I mean, well, that's
like
the
you
thing.
did in your last sale too. I was just hanging out, and then I was like, oh, I want these. I want these books, Dave's.
I shy away from the modern just because it's not my thing. Like I know some modern books, and when I'm talking about modern, I'm talking about ultra modern. I'm talking about the Wednesday Warrior books, which there is a ton in there, and you do it well because you seem to, you got your finger on the pulse almost as if it was an open wrist and you were fixing the pulse, And so I don't know if I'll ever dip my toe into that, but when I think about it, I think about how you do it. And so how long have you been doing the modern stuff? Like, do you? Yeah.
It's man, it's really like I feel like if you're doing modern, it feels to me kind of like all or nothing. Like it's a big commitment to that side of the hustle, and I almost envy your side at just being like, sort of above all that noise in a way. Like there's a lot of noise about this hottest book of the week. It just came out.
Right.
And so that's why my auction's on Thursday, because, I've tried different days of the week over time, and, being that close to New Comic Book Day, but not right on top of it, helps me to gauge where the price is settling in that current week for those current hot books, and if it's not doing anything, then I know to just move them for cover price if I bought a bunch of them and they didn't hit.
Yeah.
But it's a very, to be honest, I'm not totally sure if there's like a net gain for me financially in that game. I just know that I've got kind of a workflow set up around it where it's like, once a week I watch a couple of YouTubers who go take me through the FOC list for the week. I've got a comic shop locally to me that we have a great relationship with, and I place my FOC orders through the comic shop, and I get like 20 to 25% off cover price for everything. And then, come New Comic Book Day, 3.5 weeks later, I've got like a literal short box of new books. And a lot of them are ratios that I've earned with ordering in quantity.
Yeah.
And then I have the chance to getting some of the other ratios for like a decent price at that time as well. So I'm just I'm not Wednesday warrioring it as much. Like it's sort of like whatever I ordered 3.5 weeks ago is what I'm getting.
Yeah.
So at least it's a little streamlined in that regard. I'm not like scavenging every week to try to put it together.
That would be too stressful.
It would be too stressful. But it does take a lot of time, like 3 hours a week to like put the order together. And then another 2-3 hours of picking it up, and then all the time it takes to just bag and board all that new inventory, and that's a big time expenditure that one could argue would be better served hunting collections. Like just doing stuff with older books, and I do put a lot of money towards those new comics every week as well. So.
Well, I mean, the one thing that you provide, which is not lost, at least on somebody like me, and I'm sure it's not lost, there's a lot of people that watch these shows. They don't have a local comic store. They don't have a comic store that they can drive to. I mean, I've got one a mile away. I've got 4 within probably 10 miles. So you're at least providing that part of it. Like here, I'm not gouging on these books as if you were to try buy them 2 weeks from now. So that's a thing that I always keep in mind when I think about how much it doesn't, like, I'm not into the modern stuff as a seller, but there has to be people that are, because not everybody's got a comic store, especially this day and age. There's what, 5,000 in the country now. So
I can tell there are like, a handful of buyers who show up every week, and they do seem to be using me as like their LCS. You know what I mean? Like you can tell that they either didn't get a chance to go to the shop that week, or they just, one of my main features is my consistency with, every Thursday night, right? So they can count on me more or less being there for the books that they missed, or they didn't go to the LCS, or they don't have an LCS, so there is that kind of element of being a resource, or sort of convenience for people to combine a bunch of shit. Even if they buy one really cool bronze key book for $80, they can add on a couple of those cool covers of the week and not have to pay an eBay shipping price for just that one book. You know?
And then there's the other part is like, there are people that may have a local comic book store that have no shot at getting the variants. And as much as that's not my thing, like variants, and I'm always kind of vocal about it just because some of the art on variants is garbage. But then again, like, it's also a generational thing. Like, I grew up appreciating art, pencil, ink, boom.
Right.
There's not digital.
Lot of digital.
Yeah.
I think the digital's been getting better since that issue you just
Sure.
That stuff kind of is dated in a way that maybe today's digital art will be dated in 10 years. You never know. But
going back to like the service providing of like, oh look, I've got these amazing bangers and these key books and stuff, but also here's the stuff you might have missed this week.
Right.
And the more I think about it, because we're kids of the 90s and we watch this stuff go down the toilet, the one thing I'm reminded of in two parts is people specking on new stuff as hard as like when that Black Panther 3 book hit is why the industry tanked in the first place.
Yeah.
But they're not making millions of comics of each issue.
No, they're not.
So lucky for us, like, if it does start to sink because the spec market sinks, it won't bottom. It'll just...
I agree. Yeah. I think it is a different, people make a lot of comparisons between this time and the 90s, and it's just, you can draw comparisons, but, and I'm not a financial expert or economic expert by any means. I don't know what's going to happen, but we do have many more tools now to be educated about, market demands and supply and demands.
Yeah.
We know more or less what the print runs of these books are relative to the 90s. We know what we have this whole internet database now with eBay, and then these sub databases on Instagram and sub markets and all this. We have so many more tools at our disposal for like understanding the values of comics. So I just think there are more safeguards in place just by nature of a growing base of fandom, and also speculating and investing, and also just like more tools at our disposal to like understand the market and what's going on with it.
And no newsstand, so like that doesn't even get in the way of things, whereas it did in the past with numbers and all that. But every week I'm understanding more and more, and every week I'm thinking more and more about how I'm approaching this. But I'm not going to stop buying books though. That's the thing. Like a shark, you can't stop swimming. You can't stop with this stuff. Like,
exactly.
It's wild to see what some books did last year versus this year, and it's fun to watch also what people are buying. And you stay on top of the trends. Like, I have to get off my high horse sometimes and be like, okay, I will talk about this book because it is spec, because everybody else is talking about it. I can't just ignore that. And that's like that's one of the things that you're good at, is talking about why.
Yeah, I mean, I am a huge consumer of comic content. I listen to maybe 10 different YouTube channels a week. Like there's a lot of different content that I consume,
including the West Coast Avengers.
Including West Coast Avengers, of course. And so I look at the key collector alerts, and I use all that stuff in my weekly grind, in helping me decide what books I'm going to be selling in a week. So, if this got a key alert and I have it, great, it's going in the bin for Thursday. It's very simple. I've been thinking about this recently. Some people talk about pump and dump or specking, or like sort of a cynicism with the spec market.
Yeah.
And, why would I sell a book if I truly believe it's going to go up in value later? For example, like there are these questions about like when to buy, when to sell, when to hold, and why are you doing any of those things? And I guess one thought that occurs to me is like, I don't know, you look at like crypto or whatever. I don't know if you get into crypto at all. I basically am out of crypto for the most part right now. I didn't do well with it.
I don't know too much about it, and it doesn't compute to my 42-year-old brain that well.
41 here, not so well either. But I mean, one thing that occurred to me in sort of watching that market is like you see prices that things are selling at, but also volume that they're selling at.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a problem with comic books if you're investing and you're doing it as a business. There's a problem of liquidity, right? Where like it's not like a stock where it's like I'm really invested in Tesla, and then as soon as it hits a great price, I'm going to sell all my Tesla.
Yeah,
like,
you can't do that.
You can't do that in comics. Like you got to put on a whole dog and pony show, and you got to be like, hey, look at this, I'm going to sell the. You got to really break out the big guns in order to just sell freaking books. So it's like because I can't just immediately make all of my copies of, say, Swordmaster 1 evaporate into money, I might have to sell a few here and there. And it's like, and when people are paying attention to a book, when there's spec on a book, that is a time to either buy or sell. That is a high volume time, meaning like there's going to be a lot of copies trading hands. So as a seller, you can use it as an opportunity to sell or to buy. And it depends on whether you want to invest more in the book or offload more of the book that you already have. That's why I don't see it so much as like the cynical thing of like, these people are just pumping up the book to get rid of them. It's like, well, it all depends on the position you're at with it and your personal belief in the book. And also you have to, if you're selling a spec book, you have to some degree, believe in the spec in order to sell it. Like,
of course.
So there's kind of this whole, I don't know, it's just a evolution of thinking that I've been doing about like why I choose to buy or sell books. And sometimes I just have to not think through it, that overthink it that much, and just be like, I have the book, people want the book, it's time to sell the book.
Yeah. And that's the thing when you get into the intricacies of like, so modern as it may be like 10 years ago, where like the print runs are super low. Yeah. And then like you go back to the Silver Age, and it's like the higher the grade your book is, the easier it is to sell it if you could find somebody that's willing to spend that kind of money.
Find the buyer, right?
Yeah, there's so much intricacy. And then the 90s stuff is, right now the 90s stuff is the easiest stuff to sell. I can't keep a Spawn 1 in my house to save my life. And I love that, because I know that stuff so well, and it's, I think that it's overpriced, but
and it's still out there to find pretty easily.
Yeah. So, it's easy for me to sell that stuff because I don't need to try and sell a Spawn 1 for $50 like I see other people doing, or a Spider-Man 1 for $40. There's a lot of people taking advantage of other people right now in a major way. I mean, the collectibles industry is always like that. It's been like that since I was a kid. So I'm in a fortunate place to keep my costs low of the stuff that I'm selling. And so I'm able to afford to sell it under everybody else and not look back and be like, oh, I could have gotten $100 from that person. No, I'd rather bring that person back. It's this whole thing that I've had. So in the last year and a half, I've probably been to 75 to 100 stores on the West Coast, comic stores.
Yeah.
And my philosophy is that you should not be sacrificing a return customer to make $25 more. Yeah. And there are so many stores and so many sellers out there that want to milk as much money out of you as they can.
Sure.
And they don't care if you come back. And that's an awful way to do business. And as much as like, well, this program is about talking to you, so I'll say it, like, I watch the same people come to your shows. You get so many of the same people that week in and week out, and then you just stack on top of that, and then another 5 return customers and another 10 return customers. It's like
amazing core group of people that I'm extremely grateful for. Yeah.
And this is not I'm happy. Like, I've watched some of my people who I like sell to, they pop into your show and then they become your customer too. And it's like, cool. And that's the thing. It's like watching you have these people that are your regulars, but it's the best way to say it. And so, it's nice to see that. And I've got mine, and I was fortunate enough to start off in a place where there were people that I was friends with, or people that were just kind of meeting me through other Dave. And yeah, and so like I was like I was brought into the family, like I was already there. But that's the thing, like I had years and years and years of selling experience. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I'm almost at 5,000 positive feedback in eBay. And yeah, so that's cool. a journey.
So back to eBay for a sec. One of the first things that my cousin Aaron told me was avoid eBay at all costs. And I was kind of like, I didn't get that at first. It's funny about eBay. I've sort of come full circle on it. I find that a lot of things in the hobby, kind of full circle on CGC right now.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Kind of full circle on eBay. At first I was trying to sell things on eBay and feeling like, this works great. What's Aaron talking about? Then I got hit with a 13% fee and I was like, oh, I get it, But now it's sort of like, I watch shows on YouTube like Tales from the Flip Side, for example, where it's like, those guys are heavy hitter sellers that live and die by eBay. They're starting to wake up to Whatnot. They're sort of getting into that, but they keep complaining about losing their shirts at Whatnot. And Whatnot charges 10% as well.
12.9 altogether, or it's 12.9 plus 30 cents. So who cares about
it's roughly like an eBay loss.
Yeah.
So no shade on Whatnot. I think it's a really cool kind of selling option. Like it's a tool for selling and for buying that I think is innovative and interesting and has its own benefits and and downsides as well. But so Instagram is the only way right now for me, and some people use Facebook.
Yeah.
Or YouTube for that matter, to sort of get around the fee thing. But I do respect that eBay is sort of like the big leagues for selling. Yes. I think it's sort of like it's the biggest market in the world, and it's the data from eBay sets our entire comic economy.
It sets the economy for all collectibles for the most part. Yeah.
All of the data is called from that resource, which sort of blows my mind that we're all going off of. We all set our prices relative to eBay, but we're not selling there. It's a very strange. We're sort of a shadow economy.
a little hypocritical.
It's weird.
Yeah. I've been doing eBay since '99, but I've taken all comics off. Yeah. Like I do records, I do comic memorabilia on there. I do stuff that needs a wider audience.
Sure.
Whereas this stuff doesn't. Like and for me, Whatnot, I've built a triangle, and this is kind of Whatnot ended up being the third part of the triangle that I didn't know it was going to be, but it was YouTube was to talk about books, was to get my name out there and be this person, because I enjoy being in front of the camera. That's no lie. Like nobody would ever think anything else. And then Instagram was to move the books, but then Instagram was to get to people to look at the YouTube. Yeah. And then Whatnot pops up, and I'm like, I get to do eBay live, and I get to take people from there and say, go to Instagram, go to YouTube.
Yes.
Creating this kind of thing. And then
I like it.
And then I have my links for my eBay and Mercari sitting below the YouTube show, just in case, because you also have to remember there's people that don't want to buy outside the system.
It's true. And people who, I have to respect the fact that, like, I just posted some claim sales late last night, with some of which have sold since then, which is awesome. And by claim sales, I mean, static posts rather than live video, right? Yeah. So I have to sort of get out of my own loop sometimes and diversify my selling methodologies too.
Of course.
Because not everyone, as entertaining as my show is and your show is, not everyone wants to hang out for 4 hours and just go through one book at a time. Like that's a luxury if you have that time. To be perfectly honest, I often don't have that time. If I'm doing something else and I'm like, oh shit, Dave's on, I'm gonna pop over. But anyway, some people want the convenience of, I see the book,
I buy the book.
I buy the book, and they don't want to wait around for it in a live show. So there are lots of different ways to buy and sell. And so back to eBay, like one of the things I keep intending to do is I'm going to put some of my more like unicorn books, like really rare books that are kind of, you can't one of one, so to speak.
Yeah.
Signed books, sketch books, super rare books. I'm going to just have them sit and live on eBay at kind of a high, buy it now or best offer price, and sort of passively give me some potential income that way, rather than like, please buy this book, Instagram people, and then
right. Yeah, I have like some weird books sitting on eBay, but it's mostly like comic book memorabilia. I get those vintage posters. They sell like that for twice the price of what I'm trying to charge on my live shows. Okay. I'm like trying to sell it on a live show for $40, this vintage X-Men poster, and somebody buys it for 65 on eBay. I'm like, oh, whatever.
Totally. Yeah, it's so much of it is like knowing your audience, knowing the market for certain items, that kind of thing. It's very advanced. It's kind of like grad school for selling. We're learning as we go.
I want to be part of a community of people that are really enjoying what they're doing, and good people that are fun to talk to. And like, that's why I watch your shows. And I used to watch, I spent a lot of time watching the elite shows when I first started doing this, to see how other sellers are working. Like, Elite does their thing and it's a great service.
Yep.
They have this huge audience. I'm like, I can do this. I can build an audience. I can do this. Like, it's fun.
No, it's true, Dave. I mean, like the first time I saw your show, I was like, where's this guy been hiding? I really was just kind of like immediately drawn to you. No, I just felt like this guy's, a fun, creative guy that I feel like I know you already, kind of thing.
Yeah. I can't, like, I'm not sitting here, this YouTube show isn't to be like, I'm great, but there is a piece of me that found this thing that I've been doing as a little, side thing for 20 years. And I'm like, wait, I can do this and succeed as a full-time gig, and people enjoy it. And I'm like, all right, I might as well. I mean, I was, done working for the government, done working for people. I'm like, let me do this for myself.
Totally. For me, as a personal note, I still have other interests. I'm still a filmmaker. I'm still a musician. And, COVID was really the thing that kind of shoved me in this direction.
Right.
I was already trending this way, so to speak, but I didn't really have an option to do any of my other interests while I was locked down, and that was when the comic boom happened as well. So it was this sort of, serendipity of like, I remember talking to a friend and right as COVID was starting and my collection was already out of hand, like overgrowing our space. And I looked around and I was talking to my friend. He was like, dude, you're loaded for bear. Like the market is exploding and I had all this stuff to sell. And it was just like, okay, let's just do this hard right now. Like that. And that's what's helped me grow to this unmanageable amount of comics I'm surrounded with right now. I just spent the last week like organizing everything. It's been
man, I envy that. Like, I try, and then I get to a point, and then I buy another collection, and I know it's so much fun. But like yesterday, I came home with about 2,000 comics.
Dude, it's awesome. I mean, I'm realizing it does take a toll on you that when you acquire bulk, you have to reckon with the commitment it's going to take to get the value out of it, to just do anything, to just process them in any way. I'm still reckoning with a lot of the stuff that I picked up like months and months and months ago. So there are lots of logistical considerations of like space, time, energy, all these things. So the acquisition is the funnest part about it. You know what I mean? And so that can be alluring, whether it be collections or whether it be my FOC orders. Yeah, I want to take 25 copies of this thing, and then I'm like, oh, fuck. I gotta deal with 25 copies of this now. Like,
I gotta look at every single one to make sure that I'm grading it right. Like that's the other thing. Like, getting it is great.
Yeah.
The bagging and boarding it, whatever.
Not so much.
The time that you get distracted by flipping through the book to look at it sometimes, like for me, especially with like, we're talking Silver Age or Bronze, and I want to like, what is this?
Enjoy the book.
Yeah. Like checking the Marvel value stamp, and then discovering you've never seen some of these before, and you're looking at it from a whole different perspective as a fan, and then you're like, okay, Now I got to sort them. Now I got to make sure. Now I got to see what I'm going to sell. It's like this whole process, which is super enjoyable, but so time consuming.
So time consuming.
Yeah.
I wish I had more time to enjoy the books / read.
Yeah.
Reading. Like I do that so little compared to all of the other elements of the hobby / business. I wish I could do it more, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I that's the one thing that I've kind of gotten to a system, and this is, I don't know, whatever, this is relevant to our discussion, but like I said, I've been reading Ultimate Spider-Man on the app, on the Marvel app. So like I go to bed, I like will read for 20 minutes, fall asleep. I wake up at like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. I read for like a half hour, whether it's comics or I have, book always by the bedside, but like it definitely helps if you can set a little time aside to read the stuff that you love. But
totally,
it's a little easier for me on the iPad because then I don't have to like flip pages while I'm laying down. Like I just pick it up
and worry about condition.
Yeah,
that's an issue.
Yeah. I was thinking about maybe going through some stuff like that I recently picked up, or like just fun stuff to talk about, because it's relevant and everybody's been jumping on the Moon Knight train, which is kind of funny to me because I don't know what your history with Moon Knight is, but my history with Moon Knight is I never read it. And then I think it was the Bendis Malieve run I decided to pick up and read it when it first came out. So it was like 15 years ago. And I was like, man, this character is like insane and awesome. He's Batman, but more insane.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about like how there's a lot of books that people don't know about, and a lot of like Moon Knight stuff. Like who's, some people you could ask who's the first person to draw the Moon Knight ongoing series.
Yeah.
And I will say, Bill Sienkiewicz.
Are those all three pronunciations of his name?
Bill Sienkiewicz. I don't know. There's so much going on. But I remember the first time, and the reason why I pulled these out, I'm still missing one, but I remember the first time I saw Moon Knight was seeing the Stephen Platt books.
Sure.
And I think these ones, like, I don't know if you're aware of what these were worth back in the 90s. But they were on fire as soon as they came out.
That's weird. The first Platt book, what is that, 55 or something?
55.
55.
55 was the first one.
Always expensive, right?
Yeah, this was the Spider-Man one's the one I'm missing because it's still valued at like $90.
Wow.
Like I see comic shops selling it for anywhere between like 75 and 90. But it's just funny because like there's a sect of people that have never seen these before. And I think that they are, non-key, the most undervalued or possibly proper valued Moon Knight books out there that nobody's selling right now. You see the number ones, you see the Werewolf by Nights, you see the current run, some of the Mark Spector stuff, but you never see anybody selling those.
I still have a few from that run, not the 55, but I have the final issue, a couple copies, and I have a little section I'm holding back because the thing with Disney Plus shows and Spec is like, and if you're selling every week, is that people get hype about the show and then they're hype for a month and a half.
Right.
Like, so I need to hold some back because I can't be like, wah, wah, no Moon Knight, like when people are like peak excitement level. So just today, someone messaged me and was like, what do you got for Moon Knight? And I'm going to like show them through my stack, but like reluctantly sell them because.
Yeah. Or don't show the whole stack. The Platt stuff. And it's funny because he's one of those guys that I love unabashedly. His tenure in comics was ultra short. It was like 3 years, 4 years. But the funny thing about the Moon Knight and Spec on Disney shows, gets announced, hype goes through the roof.
Yep.
Slowly kind of steps down a little bit. Then like the week before the show comes out, the hype hits as hard as it was as its roof. And then it dies as soon as the show comes out.
You think?
Like
it can play out differently though, depending on the show.
Yeah.
And what happens in the show. It's a totally weird.
It is. It is very. I mean, like
I don't think it dies completely though.
The Hawk. No, it doesn't. I shouldn't have said completely, but it hits a floor that it like the Hawkeye show. Hype. Boom. Hits the floor. Then the Kingpin hype. Daredevil hype. But like, where's Hawkeye? Nobody wants to buy any Hawkeye books anymore. Nobody wants the Kate Bishop stuff.
Worst trade I ever made was Tales of Suspense 45. Is it first Hawkeye?
Yeah,
in a 4.5 for an ASM 50 in a 4.5. I traded my Kingpin for a Hawkeye, and that was like the dumbest move in my mind. It was brilliant because I was like, Kingpin's not a sure thing. We don't know if he's coming in the show.
Yeah,
Hawkeye's a sure thing, and people are sleeping on it because I made that play with Falcon going into Falcon and Winter Soldier show, where I had the first Falcon, and that did multiply in value by 3 or 4 times going into that show. I was expecting that to happen for Hawkeye, and nothing. People don't like Hawkeye.
Yeah, the Disney Plus shows have not done for these books in the long run what they did for them before they came out. So like, I still think the Vision Avengers first appearance is like one of the greatest comic books ever. That cover is amazing
right now.
I saw. Yeah. And Scarlet Witch, like, those are almost untouchables, especially the Scarlet Witch because it's X-Men 4. Right. Bucky, Falcon, Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, nobody wants it. Loki, another untouchable book because that's almost impossible to find. Yeah, it just even the Spider-Man movie stuff kind of, well, no, those are all untouchable books too. But Carnage, nobody wants that. I have 2 that I got yesterday in a collection, and luckily they're newsstands and they're really nice, but like, ain't nobody trying to buy those from me anytime soon.
You just got to wait a little while. I mean, it's still, I mean, there's a new Carnage series coming out right now in comics, so people just have to sort of separate it from the movie hype wheel a little bit to like remember, this is the character that I loved since the 90s, and it's always going to be there. It's just that they've made a shitty movie with him.
Yeah, they made a real. I mean, like, that movie was so bad. That movie was.
Oh my god.
I rented it. Yeah, it was the worst thing. I mean, I don't like what they've done with Venom, but that's the thing. Like, I'm able to separate myself from that. You know, like I behind this camera, there's a. There's an ASM 316 print, and that brings me to my next things that I was going to talk about. Was I just picked up another run of, what I consider to be the modern age's greatest books.
Sure.
Although there's so many of them out there.
You're covering the barcode there. Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's direct. But we'll talk about this. This may have an issue, but still, Beautiful. These books, to me, there'll never be enough supply to meet the demand. It's for the next, and then the next generation, it's the Miles issue. It's the Gwen and Miles issue. There will never be enough supply to meet the demand on those books because you're talking about the most popular character, period. End of story.
Totally.
And so, it doesn't matter that this is Todd. That this supersedes this.
It doesn't hurt.
No, but this is ASM 300 by ASM 300. There's no getting around that. But
exactly, and that's a book that I cannot keep in my PC. Like, I just can't. I would love to have one, but every time I have it and I'm prepping for an auction that week, I'm like, man, this auction would really pop off if I put this up. You know what I mean? Like, same thing with an Ultimate Fallout. Like, it's just when I get those books, it's really hard for me to, prepping for an auction is hard.
Yeah.
Pulling that from the collection and saying, hey, look what I have this week, guys, is easy. It just saves a lot of effort of like trying to sell the auction, just being like 300, boop, instant magic, add 300,
And then there's the tough decision on, like, as a seller, this is a separate conversation as a collector, but it's the tough decision. Do I sell this raw? Do I roll the dice? Like, it's not a roll of the dice because that book doesn't ever drop. It's not going to drop. Its floor is where it is. So 12 months from now, when I get it back from CGC, do I send it to get graded or do I try and sell it raw? Make up some.
I had an interesting experience with a 7.5 newsstand that I bought on eBay in a really under-followed auction. The one thing with those books is, first of all, they're in the wild, but second of all, even though supply will not match demand, there is so much supply that sometimes people miss auctions.
Yeah.
You know, so you can still get a deal sometimes when people are not in peak 300 hype mode.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I got in a 7.5 old label CGC with like a bad holder.
Yeah.
I think it went for like 440 or something in a newsstand, and I cracked it out and showed people the label and sold it raw, and I think I got like, you know, probably like 600 on it.
Yeah.
So but it wasn't so much about the profit, it was about what the attention that it brought to the sale.
Of course. And that's the thing. That's, you know, I did that sale last week with the Batman 423 that you lost on. But that was the thing. I'm like, oh, I just picked this up. I have two. I don't need a third. This one's going in the auction this week to get everybody to jump on it, you know, and jump on into the auction.
Totally.
You always want that. I mean, at the height of the recent Gambit fever, which came out of nowhere.
Yep.
Came out of nowhere.
Sometimes it does.
Yeah, I had a newsstand and I did an auction and it went for $20 more than I would have charged for it.
Yeah.
I had it priced and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do an auction. I think I had it priced at 165. I went for 185.
That's great.
Oh, okay.
I know there are lots of different reasons to do an auction or not do an auction. I mean, that that's a topic I feel one could talk about for a long time, is like,
yeah,
just selling strategies, not only for maximum profit, but also for format and excitement. And you know, sometimes I'll just make it an auction rather than a buy it now because I know I only have one copy and more than one people want it. It can be as simple as that. Or I can do it as a buy it now instead of an auction because I know I have a shit ton of books to get through that night and I don't have time to wait to
do 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. I mean, it's
it's
why I do like Whatnot. And my little thing is, and I don't know if I'm known for it yet, but my thing is to hold a book until the end, not even put it in my inventory so nobody knows it's going to be there. And I enter it in and it's the last auction of the night and it goes ape shit. Like I sold a Howard the Duck #1 for $85. That was like a VF because it was the last book of the night and it's a key, you know?
Yeah.
And people don't see those books. I mean, I had 7 at one point.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great.
I have it in grading purgatory right now. I went for a bump from a 9.6. I'm hoping for a 9.8.
Well, I hope it gets it. I mean, that's another topic for another time, the grading purgatory. I've only got 13 books in there, but
250 for me.
Yeah. I'm not there yet. And then there's the big one that we'll see what happens. That the ASM 129 is getting pressed by one of the best pressers in the country, getting submitted by somebody who gets fast tracked by CGC.
I cannot wait to see what that does.
I don't want to know until that book is in my hands what it is. Like, I can't think about what it would be like to know that book's a 9.8 and that it's being handled by somebody else in the mail system.
Dude.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it can't be insured for enough.
No. So
are you going to keep yourself in suspense and not look at the grade?
Correct. I don't want to know the grade.
I can't even do that. I wait so long for these things. I'm refreshing the freaking dashboard every 5 minutes.
To know what I knew about the Batman Adventures 12 because that was coming back to me, and it was like kind of this big moment for me. And when I saw it was a 9.8, I almost dropped my laptop on the floor and like threw it up in the air. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I got so many really nice messages from people when they watched the unboxing of that collection. I pulled out that Amazing Spider-Man 129 and lost my mind because like it wouldn't have been if like it was beat up. I would be like, oh, it's sick. But I pull out this book and it looks like it came off
like a facsimile.
Yeah, it looked like a facsimile. It had shine to it. And I'm just like, I didn't know the amount of money that it was worth. If it at that point, like I knew what it was worth raw. I don't know what it's worth.
What is it in a 9.8? What is it?
Somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000.
Yeah.
Dude.
Think about like Marvel Spotlight 5 and a 9.8 went for what, 250?
Yeah.
That was that record sale. So like Punisher should be more.
It should. I think maybe because ASM is probably there's more of them out there.
Sure. That's a good point. Yeah.
But it's just like, wow, that's what I do this for. The last thing I want to show you is like, I don't know if you know anything about this, but I love weird. I know you love weird books. I love weird, rare books that don't exist. Do you know what this is? I'm interested to see if you know what it is.
Did you mention it in a live show recently?
Yeah.
I think that I was aware you were talking about it, but I don't remember now.
This is an Ultimate Spider-Man #1.
It's
right?
an error, right?
It's
a
not
book or something.
It is a different book. So this is a Target exclusive, and it actually contains in the DC it says Ultimate Spider-Man 14 and 15, but they put it as #1. So supposedly, and I haven't done enough research, just Key Collector. Supposedly, there's only 600 of these in existence. Like, I don't know how I knew that. Like, I looked at this and I'm like, this isn't #1. And full disclosure, I got it for $15 at a local shop. But like, that's the type of thing that I enjoy selling and enjoy finding. It's like this shit that nobody knows about. Like the weird.
So cool.
Yeah, and
the weird, and I've been really, part of my learning process in the last couple of years has been understanding scarcity and the value of scarcity.
Yeah.
And it can be relative to demand, like you said about 300, but you can't call that book scarce. It's just wildly popular, right? But it's started to become more and more rewarding for me as a seller, and I guess as a collector, to pick up rare items. Because they sell. Like I can find buyers for things that are demonstrably rare and scarce. You know what I mean? When you can point to the census and say, this is 1 of 30.
Right.
And there's none on eBay available right now, that sells, and often for a record price, or for, the price that you want it to sell for.
Like that Invincible that you had, right? Didn't you get a crazy rare Invincible #1?
I got the foil. I was lucky. I was on a Big Clutch Comics Vault Live Whatnot sale. I rarely ever spend time on Whatnot sales. I really got lucky. I think I saw him on a YouTube channel promoting the sale. I put it in my book. I happened to be available. Watched the live stream. Bought a mystery pack for $400, which is a pretty big gamble.
Yeah, that is.
But there were like 5 or 6 foil variants mixed into about 35 packs. So something like a 1 in 7 chance.
It's not a bad chance.
Yeah, and I hit it, and I got it graded CBCS, and the only available copies were $5,000 and $10,000 on eBay. And so I set my price at 4, and I have an amazing blessing of having an in-person, like real life buyer who I call a whale. He's a whale.
Yeah.
He's a whale buyer, who just has a lot of cash, likes really flashy comics, likes it when they're rare, likes it when you can show him how rare they are, and he pays.
Sick.
And it's amazing.
No, I
made a cash sale for the price that I wanted.
That's huge, and that's actually like making a $45,000 or $5,000 sale when you think about any other way you're going to have to give somebody a cut.
Exactly.
So it's the rare, and that's the thing. Like, I recently acquired a Invincible 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and that book is so hard to find. 5,700 in print. That's it. Something like that. And then like you take, like when you think about like that comic you got, special. It's like special. But then when you're just talking about a book that you could have bought on the stands, you're talking 5,000. You're really talking maybe 4,000.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Like.
And that's the weird thing about scarcity is like, there's a big quandary. If you're a collector, a fan of Invincible, do you want to spend 4,000 on the real thing? I believe the 9.8 for the first.
It's about 4 to 5,
something around there.
Yeah.
Or do you want to get this brand new reprint that just came out a month or two ago, but there are only 150 of them?
Right. It's like a slice of what the actual.
So what you're able to get. Shows you how this like manufactured scarcity. That's what it is. They're making it they're limiting it to this really low number, seems to kind of trump the real thing, which is also scarce but not as much. So it's an interesting quandary.
It is, and
as a collector,
you just don't want the market to be flooded with too many of those types of scarce books, because that's when you start to see crashing. You start to see shit hit the fan in a way. But yeah, I mean, scarce books, you know, there is some real, and I think this kind of ties up like everything we've said. It's like there's so many ways to look at this as a seller, a collector, or buyer. But all modern books from, I will say, you know, 97 to 2010, like there is a real value in getting some of that stuff because it just doesn't exist.
Exactly, like the newsstands from that era and stuff.
Yeah, or just finding your Walking Dead number ones, your Invincible number ones, the stuff that you know, as I knew that Saga was going to be great. I bought that first issue because I know Brian K. Vaughan, but the mass didn't know.
Sure.
And it's the most popular comic that exists right now, hands down. There is no comic that gets people fevered up as much as Saga. I don't know if you saw like the hoopla about when it came back from its huge hiatus.
I bought a few copies. I have read the first couple trades of it, and I've enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But like, it was treated how they used to treat albums in the 90s. There were comic stores opening up at midnight to sell that book.
Wow.
And like, that says something, especially when you're talking about an independent book.
For sure. Yeah. And
I
do love, like, I love indies. I love like 90s indie stuff. Like Madman and Scud the Disposable Assassin and, you know, the Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, those kind of books, like Grendel and shit. Yeah.
And you know, like, I'm glad there is definitely a piece of me that's happy that this stuff gets made into TV and movies, because then it keeps everything alive.
Sure.
Which is good. You just hate to see the garbage versions of all this stuff.
Yes. It sucks when they're disappointing.
Yeah. But
the Invincible show is really good, though.
Oh my God. Oh
really,
my God.
Really like it. And I've never read the books, so I was just completely, you know, I completely blindsided by its bloody realness.
That's what sold it for so many of my friends. Like, I'm like, you need to watch this. I'm not going to tell you why. I'm not going to tell you what it's about, because you need to watch the first episode. And everybody that watched the first episode was like, holy shit.
Yeah,
you know, like,
you cannot have a different reaction. It's just undeniably badass.
Yeah.
It's shocking. Yeah.
I love Kirkman. I tapped out on The Walking Dead at issue 101. I tapped out of the show in the second season, but then when I started reading Invincible, I was like, this is what I want. This is what I want. The Superman that I never got to have.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And that's really what it is. It's like, what if Superman and his dad were here and his dad was a piece of shit?
Yeah, totally. And like, and just in general, like, what makes people with superpowers so good? You know, why would they be good? You know?
Right.
Or why wouldn't they just be sort of like normal people with normal problems? And, you know, you just get a totally different spin on the entire genre.
And also, you don't get to choose your family. It's a huge family show. It's about like people that definitely have problems with the people in their family, or have had problems with people in their family. And the book is just like that. So, but
absolutely.
So, Maddie,
what's up, Dave?
What books do you have for show and tell to talk about?
I mean, if we had more time, I would go through like.
I got plenty of time.
A whole mail call thing. Like, I would sort of do this whole thing. That was one of my thoughts, but I think we won't go through the unboxing.
Yeah.
But, one of the things that I bought in here, I'll just spoil, was, you know, I go heavy on certain things. This is the first published work of Sozo Maika, the new artist that's blowing up.
Right. Yeah.
So I bought a bunch of copies of her first work from Black Mass Studios, and I'm hoping that they're not like reprinting it to shit just to make dough off it, because I don't think, as the last time I checked, that it was sold out off their site. So I might be sitting on these. It was a gamble. We'll see.
Sozo, I've heard you talk about Sozo. Is Sozo a she or a he?
It is a she.
She, yeah. So that's something that you also might have started trending too.
Well, I think I've been feeding the flame a little bit. It took me. So I became aware of her when the Red Sonja and Vampirella Valentine's Day specials came out, because I thought they were stunning covers, and I ordered pretty heavy on them for FOC. I saw that they were coming out different weeks and that it was the same artist, and I was like, that's something I know my customers will really like, and I really like it myself. I started looking into it, and like looking, when I get into an artist, I start looking for their first.
Of course.
And I did my own research, and I found a first of hers that I was pretty confident was her first. I was like following her on Twitter. I was like, oh my God, this artist is so cool. She's like young and beautiful and really hip, and she does a lot of fashion work and stuff. And so I just sort of became kind of smitten with her as an artist. And I was kind of like, and I was like following her Twitter feed, and I thought I pinpointed her first, which was Kill Switch #1 from 2019. And not only did I have a couple of copies, but I was like, I'm going to buy more. So then I went to Midtown and I bought like 25 copies of that, thinking it was the first. Yeah. And then I watched Comic Book Women over on Tales from the Flip Side, and they did a whole feature on her. And they showed that her name was different before 2019. It was Micah Sozo.
Right, which is traditional.
And not only that, but some of her first work misspelled her name. So it was like Mikia Soto or something. It was completely different. So, and she wasn't being very forthcoming in her Twitter about what her first work was. She's like, I don't really remember. She was sort of like not helping.
Yeah.
So I totally missed that mark, and I overbought this book that was not her first, but whatever. Then I identified her first, and I went really heavy on that one. And then they're telling me that it might be overly printed and, going to late printings without being told that they were basically print to order.
Right.
And I emailed the publisher and I was like, is this print to order, or like, why is it still available? And they're like, there are very limited quantities available, and it is first print. And I'm like, okay.
Didn't really answer my question totally. I mean, kind of. Definitely something to always keep in mind, because if you're a fan of an artist, like, I don't know, but I'm sure Peach Momoko's first comic work has to be worth some money.
Sure. Yeah, I think I can't think of what it is right now. I know like Rose Besch's is this weird book called Bee and Puppy Cat. It's like a kid's book, and it goes for like over $100.
Wow. I mean, we could go back to my friend Todd and Coyote #12 or 11. I bought that book a long time ago, and now it's worth 50 times what I paid for it.
So, yeah, crazy. And then Jim Lee's is like that Samurai Santa, I believe.
Samurai Santa, and then First Marvel is like Alpha Flight #19 or something like that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, his first Marvel's an Alpha Flight. I forget what number it is though. So what else you got there?
I'll show a few slabs, just things I pulled recently. Speaking of Peach, this is a Guardians of the Galaxy #13. I bought this off of one of my consignor friends just because it's so cheap. It's a 1 in 50 Peach cover, and there's going to be a Groot show, and there's Guardians 3.
Guardians 3, yeah.
I just can't see this being like a $50 slab.
No, that's something that like it's an art piece. I mean, it's something that you could put on your wall. It's like, oh, it's not a $1,000 book, but it's not going to be a $50 book. You're right.
Exactly. And like Peach is slumping because she's so overexposed, but there's still a lot of Peach fans, and that's one of her better covers.
Yeah, she hit some home runs, and that's definitely one of them.
For sure.
Yeah.
So here's one I'm gonna keep around for a while. This is like Stan Sakai signed and sketched Usagi 20.
Yeah.
It's a Virgin exclusive from Dogu, which is sort of like, I think, an affiliate of his.
Huh.
And it's the first appearance of this new character, Yukichi. Signed and sketched.
So I mean, obviously, I know Stan Sakai is, and I know Usagi Jimbo, but it's going to come to a new generation. I hope it works out. Like the Netflix show, I hope it introduces him. Sakai is one of those guys, though. He's a legend. Yeah. Do you have an Albedo one or Albedo? Right?
I don't have an Albedo 2. I have an Usagi one that's grading now.
Okay.
For 9.6 or 9.8 on it, and I have a Primer 2. That's sort of like my consolation from that era of like an obscure #2 book that happened to have a big first appearance in it.
Albedo 2 is one of those ones that's on my radar to find this year. Like I'm gonna get one in a quarter bin, and that's a guarantee. Like I will find it.
Dude. How can you find a quarter bin that would have that in it? That's
Look,
crazy.
I mean, I've found some crazy books for $1 or a quarter and stuff like that. I got my Caliber Presents Crow first appearance. That I didn't get in a quarter bin, but I found a Crow 2 and 4 for like $5 each.
I think we take for granted our own expertise, to be honest. Like we take for granted that we can look through a box and know what's in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's so overwhelming for people who don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know what that's like.
One.
I have an experience. I bought a comic card collection recently, and the person gave me a tin that had Pokemon cards, and I looked at them and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck. I don't know what this is.
That's how I am with cards.
Yeah. So
same way if you imagine it the other way around.
Right. Like I know Marvel cards, but I don't know anything about Pokemon or Magic.
Yeah.
So
we probably should know those things, but
too much. No,
because
I don't try and buy them. That's why I don't.
Let alone sports. Like sport, give me like I'm in another universe.
I know sports cards if they're pre, 2005 or whatever, 2010.
Okay.
But I also know like I can look at a LeBron James rookie and be like, yeah, I know this is going to be worth a couple of $1,000.
Sure.
So
yeah, I could know that.
Anything else?
Okay, a couple others that I set aside. I picked these up recently from my buddy. Speaking of rare books, these are Spider-Man Castellani sketch variants. So they're from 2013, which is a dark era.
It's a very dark era. Yeah.
And just very obscure. These are 1 in 100 ratios.
I would never think that those were anything, but they're weird. I like it.
They're weird. Spider-Man Lego, right?
Yeah.
Huge properties with huge fan bases. Not available to find if you're looking for them. So these are books that I actually pressed and graded these for my buddy like over a year ago, and now I bought them from him. And it was part of like a trade. Like he'd bought some things at my auction, and we kind of settled a balance that way.
What do you think those are worth?
So like I basically bought them for the equivalent of $250 each.
Yeah.
And my gamble on them is my hunch is, first of all, it's Spec. Like if they ever actually do Spider-Man in Lego, like they did with Batman.
Oh, they haven't.
They haven't.
Okay.
Not in the movies, not in like a Lego movie or whatever. If they do that, then that's game over,
Yeah.
Even still, I bet I could flip them for maybe double. Like that's the kind of book that I might list on eBay just to be the only copies available.
Yeah.
I list them at 1,000 each or best offer and just see what happens.
Well, you couldn't ask for a better character to have weird rare variant covers.
Exactly.
Like
one of them is Superior Spider-Man, but the other one is Daredevil 31. It's like the middle of a run that has nothing to do. It's so obscure that
I will say one thing about ultra moderns that don't make sense to me is doing variant covers of characters that have nothing to do with the book.
It is very silly.
The Ghost Rider Gwen. Don't get it. The Gwen variant. Like, isn't there a new Ghost Rider book that has a Gwen variant?
Oh yeah, but they're putting Gwen on like as a variant on like every book coming out that month. So
yeah, like I said, that
sense.
Does not compute.
No. So lastly, I'll just show a little triumvirate I have here. Bronze baddies.
Ooh boy. If you total that up, that is a 12.0 of any of those books.
Exactly. I wish these grades were better. I've at one time had the Spotlight in a 5.5, as you know, and I had the Todd 10 in a 5 or 6, I can't remember. Now this book, so these are sort of like PC/investment books that I'm actually like, I'll probably sell the 32
right
somewhere in proximity to the show, which
would be within the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Pretty soon. But I'm sort of holding it back, waiting to see what prices do. Now this copy I got from a community, Instagram community guy, CVM Comics. Shout out to Chris. And you can see it's heavily stained.
Yeah.
And I recently acquired a book.
Oh yes, the fabled Bible.
Comic book stain removal.
Whitening,
so
fox, and tanning and
I will be experimenting with these methods on this book because I love Blade. I love this cover, and I love Mahershala Ali, and I'm like a huge fan.
I love Ali also. I'm so stoked.
Did you watch True Detective season 3?
Oh yeah. He
is like a master.
I mean, well, he was. It was hard to believe that was the same person as him young and him old. Like it was amazing. It was amazing.
Unbelievable. So I just have huge faith in him as an actor and whatever the property is. It's kind of a no-brainer if you're looking to invest in.
Well, those 3 books I consider the, if you're talking, if we're talking like music, those 3 books are the indie bands that are upcoming. They're the Seattle scene to Punisher and Wolverine, which are Guns N' Roses and Metallica. And so like you look at, I mean, Ghost Rider, we know there will be more to come, but the fact that they've got Blade coming and Moon Knight's, when we're talking about the movies and TV, but like as characters, they're just like, I don't know how to like put them, like if Wolverine 181 and 129 are Jason and Freddy, then Moon Knight, Ghost Rider, and Blade are Michael Myers, Pinhead, and I don't know, one other. Like they're no slouch. They've got these crazy rabid fan bases, and for my money, I'd rather read or see those properties do cool things.
And they also sort of share a commonality of like being more horror oriented,
right? Supernatural,
right?
Yeah.
So it's very fun to have them in my collection / inventory and kind of imagine they're on a fun little team doing adventures together. Or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, those would be ones that I would have hard time letting go of. I get
That's the thing. It's like I do over time. Like I feel more regret about selling the old books. Like when I sell my FF49 or I sell my Marvel Spotlight 5, I'm like, I got to get that back immediately.
Yeah.
That's the feeling I get really intensely, and it's partly a fear of missing out, of like I won't get it again. I'm gonna miss the price hike or whatever, but it's partly just being a fan and feeling like feeling like they're gonna go out of reach.
Yeah,
that's what FOMO is. People talk about FOMO a lot, but it's literally essential to collecting. Like you must have an experience of FOMO in order to be a collector.
And you have to be able to look past it to be a seller.
Exactly.
Exactly. Well, I think that's a great way to end this. I might have to cut this into 2 parts, which is also great. This has been so much fun. And once again, this is Matty Marlin of Comic Sales on Instagram. The Hat, the Legend. You can go, I will link his YouTube.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do have a YouTube channel, Comics. And a video I will be working on is showing the progress of my collection organization, which I've been doing the last week.
That's great.
Take some video for that, and I will be cutting something together for that.
Awesome. Well, once again, you can check out all the links below. You'll find Maddie's link to Instagram and his YouTube, as well as my links for all of the stuff on the West Coast Avengers. And big thanks to you, Maddie. I would love to make this a monthly thing. Maybe once a month we wrap, we
That'd
talk.
Be great. Yeah, I feel like we could talk another 5 hours. It's easy.
Easy.
So a lot of fun. Dave, I didn't know it was going to be that kind of video.
Yeah.